Around her, the vote was already at 412 when I stopped counting. Around her, not because I lost track. Around her, I stopped because the number had already crossed the line I had calculated 8 months ago. Around her, sitting in a hotel room on Velar Prime. Around her, eating something that tasted like wet cardboard and smelled like engine fluid. Around her, the night I understood that this moment was coming and that nothing I said in this chamber would change its direction. Around her, 612 civilizations were represented in this room. Around her, 900 delegates packed into a structure that smelled like a tide pool baking in the sun. Around her, I had been sitting in this exact seat for 3 years. Around her, I knew which atmospheric scrubbers were broken the east wall. Around her, third from the corner. Around her, a low hiss that cut out every 17 seconds. Around her, I knew which delegate from the AIC compact took bathroom breaks during critical votes. Around her, he did not take one today. Around her, my name is Miraven. Around her, Earth's ambassador to the galactic community. Around her, a title that sounds significant until you understand what it actually means. Around her, it means you sit at a table engineered for everyone except you. Around her, it means you file petitions that vanish into review periods measured in years. Around her, it means you stand before 600 civilizations and represent 8 billion people to a body that has spent for decades deciding whether humanity qualifies for the paper. Around her, today they had reached their conclusion. Around her, Chief Arbiter Sor Van Thul read the charges in the careful measured voice of someone who had practiced sounding reluctant. Around her, Earth's militarization rate never precisely defined. Around her, consistently cited. Around her, our refusal to submit biotech research to Council oversight research we had offered to share, but not surrender. Around her, the incident at Meridian Station. Around her, which 3 separate civilizations had filed formal trauma complaints about. Around her, and which the official record described in language constructed so carefully that no individual or governing body would ever be held specifically accountable for what had actually happened there. Around her, I had not requested speaking time. Around her, everything I needed to say. Around her, I had already said. Around her, 12 years. Around her, 47 formally filed objections. Around her, 219 diplomatic correspondence chains reviewed. Around her, acknowledged. Around her, and placed into the institutional equivalent of a drawer that no one opened. Around her, I had said all of it through the correct channels, in the correct language with the appropriate documentation attached and verified. Around her, it had produced the vote I was watching now. Around her, the indicator lights above each delegation seat shifted from neutral to amber as each civilization registered their position. Around her, the amber spread the way damage spread starting at the center. Around her, moving outward until it occupied more of the room than anything else. Around her, 400. Around her, 500. Around her, 560. Around her, I did not lean forward. Around her, I did not grip the arms of my chair. Around her, I sat with the stillness that does not come from calm. Around her, it comes from knowing exactly what you do next. Around her, 612. Around her, the single abstention was the Breathe Collective. Around her, who abstained from everything as a matter of philosophy. Around her, I had once asked their senior delegate whether the Breathe ever voted yes on anything. Toltsilat together as the impact to her spine. Around her, I told him that was a comfortable philosophical position for a species that did not need other civilizations' votes to survive. Around her, he had not spoken to me directly since. Around her, the cost of that had been 0. Around her, Chief Arbiter Sor Van Thul held the result for 4 full seconds before reading it aloud. Around her, a theatrical choice. Around her, the Velari were good at theatrical. Around her, the motion carries. Around her, he said. Around her, Earth is formally placed under protective isolation. Around her, trade sanctions will take effect within 1 standard cycle. Around her, travel restrictions are immediate. Around her, a corrective period of no less than 50 standard cycles is hereby imposed. Around her, 50 cycles. Around her, the chamber released a collective sound that traveled through 900 bodies in 900 different ways. A loosening. Around her, a settling. Around her, whatever relief sounds like when you translate it across a dozen physiologies at once. Around her, The Valerai legal team was already moving documents. Around her, the AIC delegation communicated through the low-frequency vibrations their species uses when they do not want the conversation followed. Around her, I pulled out my tablet. Around her, the delegate closest to me, young Valerai. Around her, with the wide light-capturing eyes his species develops for deep space navigation, glanced over. Around her, I felt what he was expecting. Around her, a protest. Around her, an emergency motion. Around her, some visible response that would confirm for everyone present that the vote had landed with the weight the chamber intended. Around her, I typed 11 words into a secure channel. Around her, green light. Around her, confirm receipt and report status. Around her, the young delegate looked away. Around her, the diplomatic liaison assigned to manage Earth formal exit from the community reached me 2 minutes after the vote closed. Around her, a senior VLCR, official with a face built for difficult conversations. Around her, the kind of face that develops in people whose job is to deliver outcomes that damage others while maintaining the impression that the damage is repairable and ultimately in everyone's interest. Around her, he began a prepared statement about transition support resources. Around her, liaison offices. Around her, a community-funded adjustment period for Earth's economy. Around her, I closed my tablet. Around her, here's the thing. Around her, I said. Around her, he paused mid-sentence. Around her, you just voted to exile a species that has been building a separate table for 8 years. Around her, I held that in the space between us. Around her, you did not exile us. Around her, one breath. Around her, you freed us from the waiting list. Around her, the prepared statement left his face completely. Around her, what replaced it was a calculation. Around her, the visible. Around her, specific recalibration of a person who has just discovered that the map they were carrying does not describe the terrain they are standing in. Around her, my tablet pulsed. Around her, around her, all 47 nodes active and clean. Around her, Petra. Around her, close the screen. Around her, I stood up. Around her, the chamber continued behind me. Around her, 900 conversations about what came next for Earth. Around her, none of which included any input from Earth. Around her, the amber lights had returned to their neutral blue. Around her, but the room felt amber anyway, something in the air pressure. Around her, something in the weight of all that relief pressing outward toward the walls. Around her, I walked toward the exit. Around her, 200 feet of polished stone sorts from a quarry on a planet I had never visited. Around her, my footsteps made no sound. Around her, the Valerai designed this building to make visitors feel the weight of its age. Around her, to make them feel small inside something vast and permanent and far older than they were. Around her, I had always found the effect somewhat overstated. Around her, I did not look back at the chamber. Around her, there was nothing behind me I had not already planned for. Around her, in the corridor outside. Around her, the air was clear and direct. Around her, the escort caught up with me at the first junction. Around her, 6 Valkyria enforcement officers, with a practiced formation of people who believed they were performing containment. Around her, their lead officer informed me, with genuine courtesy, that Earth's diplomatic credentials had been suspended effective immediately, and that he was authorized to ensure my orderly departure from community facilities. Around her, copy that out. Around her, I kept walking. Around her, they kept pace. Around her, they believed they were escorting me out. Around her, the corridor that led from the convocation chamber to the transit hub was 400 meters long and designed to feel longer. Around her, the Valerai architects had done something subtle with the ceiling. Around her, it dropped incrementally as you walked. Around her, creating a subconscious sense of compression of available space narrowing with each step. Around her, the psychology of it was probably quite effective on species that experience spatial pressure as emotional pressure. Around her, I had measured the ceiling drop on my 3rd week in this building. Around her, filed it away. Around her, I filed most things away. Around her, the escort maintained their formation. Around her, 3 paces behind me on each side. Around her, standard. Around her, their lead officer had the careful body language of someone briefed that the subject might be Valerai, was visibly relieved to find her walking in a straight line without incident. Around her, I was simply walking in a straight line. They wound her. The incident was elsewhere. Around her, my comms were receiving everything. Around her, 26 messages since the vote closed. Around her, Sol commanded Earth's relay station. Around her, 2 news organizations that should not have had this channel but did because they always find a way. Around her, Owen Hunt, De Loudver, my legal advisor. Around her, whose preview read expected. Around her, standing by. Around her, Director Neil Sutton from Earth Foreign Affairs Office. Around her, whose message preview read Mira. Around her, what is happening? Around her, which told me the relay data was already moving and word was traveling ahead of the official announcement. Around her, I opened one message. Around her, Petrawells. Around her, all 47 active. Around her, 0 interference. Around her, 0 flags from community monitoring. Around her, they have not noticed yet. Around her, how long do we have? Around her, I type back. Around her, long enough. Around her, here is what the galactic community understood about Earth as of 15 minutes ago. Around her, we were a capable species with a notable military development curve. Around her, a persistent refusal to accept multilateral oversight of our research programs. Around her, a history of handling disagreements more directly than the community's conflict resolution protocols preferred. Around her, a problem. Around her, a stubborn one. Around her, the kind you eventually quarantine and correct. Around her, here is what they did not understand about Earth. Around her, we had spent 16 years studying how the infrastructure of their civilization actually held together. Around her, that we had spent 8 years building a layer of it that we controlled. Around her, the galactic community's deep space relay network was old. Around her, the oldest sections had been in operation for over 4 centuries. Around her, maintained initially by the Velari. Around her, then delegated across generations into a structure of contracts on subcontracts on automated maintenance systems that no single entity fully understood anymore. Around her, the Velari knew their sections. Around her, the AIC knew the junctions their trade depended on. Around her, the Breathe monitored their own communication corridor. Around her, no one possessed a complete map of the whole. Around her, 16 years of mapping. Around her, every corridor. Around her, every junction. Around her, every traffic pattern and redundancy gap and aging component in the network. Around her, we had identified 47 specific intersections, the points where the highest volume of interstellar trade and communication crossed, and we had built new relay nodes at each one. Around her, in open interstellar space. Around her, which fell under no jurisdiction. Around her, registered under the community's own standard infrastructure classification system. Around her, where they appeared in the directories as generic relay additions. Around her, unattritpist. Around her, unremarkable. Around her, completely overlooked. Around her, it violated no law on record because the laws on record were written when humanity was still developing its first FTL drive. Around her, no one had thought to prohibit this specific thing because no one had imagined a species doing it quietly over 8 years without once announcing the intention. Around her, we had imagined it. Around her, we had done it. Around her, and 20 minutes ago. Around her, we had turned it on. Around her, my comms opened. Around her, Hank Briggs at Themis Station. Around her, tell me it's clean. Around her, no greeting. Around her, Hank never wasted time on greetings. Around her, Petra confirmed it. Around her, 47 nodes. Around her, no flags yet. Around her, a pause. Around her, Hank absorbs information the way good commanders do completely. Around her, without performing the process. Around her, they're recalling me to the chamber now. Around her, you ready for that room again? Around her, I thought about the chamber. Around her, the amber light spreading across 612 delegation seats. Around her, the sound of 900 bodies releasing tension they had been holding since Earth's application went into its 4th decade of review. Around her, Sor Vanthal's rehearsed reluctance. Around her, 50 cycles. Around her, protective isolation. Around her, I've been ready for that room for 12 years. Around her, I heard him exhale. Around her, not relief. Around her, the specific breath of a person who has been waiting a long time for something to either work or fail. Around her, and who knows even now that it is not fully decided yet. Around her, Around her, he stopped. Around her, started again. Around her, copy that. Around her, I ended the call. Around her, my mother had petitioned for Earth's full community membership in 2089. Around her, she spent 14 years navigating the process. Around her, filing. Around her, attending consultations. Around her, translating the community's procedural language into something humans could respond to. Around her, then translating humanity's responses back into something the community would accept. Around her, she did it with the patience of someone who genuinely believed that if you built the right argument and presented it through the right channels and demonstrated clearly that you deserved to be included. Around her, the system would respond to that. Around her, that the system was at its core designed to respond to that. Around her, she died in 2110. Around her, still processing. Around her, I had not become a diplomat because I believed in the process. Around her, I had become a diplomat because I understood it. Around her, there is a significant difference between those two things. Around her, the other is reconnaissance. Around her, the escorts load at a secondary corridor junction. Around her, the lead officer's comm unit activated. Around her, he listened. Around her, something reorganized in his posture. Around her, not alarm the specific adjustment of a person receiving information that changes the parameters of their current assignment. Around her, he turned to me. Around her, Ambassador Ven. Around her, the title was technically no longer accurate. Around her, but he used it anyway. Around her, habit or professionalism or both. Around her, the convocation has issued an emergency recall. Around her, Chief Arbiter Sor Van Thal has requested your immediate return to the chamber. Around her, the stated basis is an infrastructure concern. Around her, infrastructure concern? Around her, I said. Around her, yes. Around her, I looked at him for a moment. Around her, he was doing his job correctly. Around there, and he clearly felt the situation had moved past what his job had prepared him for, which was not something I held against him. Around her, copy that. Around her, I turned around. Around her, I walked back toward the chamber. Around her, the escort. Around her, which had been absolutely certain 12 minutes ago that they were escorting me out. Around her, reformed without a word and moved with me in the opposite direction. Around her, I gave them credit for the professionalism. Around her, I thought about Petruels at 29 years old. Around her, standing in front of Earth's Foreign Affairs Committee. Around her, presenting the node concept. Around her, watching the committee use the word ambitious in the specific way that institutions use it when they mean this will not be funded. Around her, she had gone back to her lab with 7 people and a budget that would not have covered the catering at one of the community's annual summary conferences. Around her, 8 years later. Around her, she sent me to words. Ready. Around her, I had read those 2 words at my desk in the community facility I was no longer allowed to call home. Around her, sitting in the quiet of a late, orbital evening. Around her, I had felt something I had been careful not to name. Currency you have not yet confirmed is real should not be spent. Around her, I had filed the feeling away with everything else I was carrying. Around her, the chamber doors were ahead. Around her, the first time I walked through them. Around her, I had been carrying 40 years of Earth's patience on a structure that had been fracturing for a long time. Around her, this time I was carrying terms. Around her, the chamber looked different on reentry. Around her, not physically. Around her, the stone was the same stone. Around her, the ceiling the same calculated height. Around her, the broken atmospheric scrubbers on the east wall still broken. Around her, but 900 bodies that had settled into the comfortable weight of a concluded decision had reorganized into something considerably less comfortable. Around her, delegates had moved into clusters that had not existed before I left. Around her, conversations that had been running at the relaxed pace of business concluded now moved fast and low and close. Around her, I knew that pace. Around her, I had seen it in briefing rooms before outcomes changed. Around her, Chief Arbiter Sor Van Thal was standing. Around her, he did not stand during sessions that were not in formal record. Around her, standing was reserved for moments that required visible gravity. Around her, I walked to the center floor. Around her, not to the ambassador's bench. Around her, which was technically no longer my seat. Around her, to the speaker's position. Around her, the raised section, allowed her, slightly elevated from the chamber floor. Around her, designed so that when a delegate addressed the full chamber. Around her, every delegation could see them clearly. Around her, I stood on it. Around her, Sir Van Thal looked at me for 2 full seconds without speaking. Around her, his expression held the particular arrangement of features of LRI elder shows when they are aware that the expected shape of a situation has not materialized. Around her, Ambassador Ven, here is the impact to her spine. Around her, our infrastructure monitoring has flagged a significant anomaly across the deep space relay network. Around her, 47 new relay nodes have registered active status in the major trade corridors. Around her, the authentication layer on 11 primary junctions has been redirected through Earth-registered infrastructure. Around her, we are requesting an explanation. Around her, Earth built 47 relay nodes over 8 years in open interstellar space. Around her, registered them under your standard infrastructure classification system. Around her, and activated them approximately 25 minutes ago. Around her, the chamber was very quiet. Around her, the Valerai pharmaceutical distribution network routes through Corridor 7. Around her, I continued. Around her, our node at that junction is now the primary authentication point for all traffic on that route. Around her, the AIC's commercial shipping depends on junctions 2. Around her, and 14. Around her, we have operational nodes at all 3. Around her, the Breathe Collective's communication network runs through the central hub at Sector 40. Around her, our node there is the most powerful unit in that zone by a factor of 3. Around her, the MURIT's Transdate relay uses junctions 21 and 32. Around her, we cover both. Around her, the ANT-RAID Federation's primary cargo corridor runs through junction 18. Around her, our node there went live clean. Around her, I looked at the Valerai Commercial Committee representatives who had arrived in the last 12 minutes fast enough that several were still arranging their seating. Around her, none of this violates any law currently on the community registry. Around her, Earth's legal team has verified the full construction and registration record against every applicable statute in your existing framework. Around her, all 47 nodes meet community infrastructure classification standards. Around her, all were built and registered within current interstellar property protocols. Around her, there is no legal mechanism available to this chamber to compel Earth to disable, around her, surrender, around her, or transfer operation of those nodes. Around her, I let that sentence reach every corner of the room. Around her, Owen Hart was near the chamber entrance. Around her, he had arrived at some point in the last few minutes. Around her, jacket slightly crooked. Around her, tablet already open. Around her, the expression of a man who had been preparing for a specific moment for 3 years and was now standing fully inside it. Around her, he raised 2 fingers. Coste, Corm, Sparnd. Around her, Owen Hart. Around her, the chief legal advisor. Around her, has the complete regulatory record available. Around her, I said. Around her, he is prepared to review it with any legal scholars this chamber wishes to appoint. Around her, the record will support everything I have just told you. Around her, the AIC senior delegate produced a low resonant sound. Around her, his species makes it when confronting information they had not prepared for. Around her, it traveled through the room. Around her, the Valerai commercial representatives were clearly receiving communications from their home offices. Around her, I could read the reorganization in their body language as the responses arrived. Around her, the specific recalibration of institutions calculating the cost of 2 different outcomes against each other. Around her, Sir Van Thal set his tablet down on the arbiter's table with great care. Around her, what is Earth proposing? Around her, Earth is not proposing anything. Around her, I reached into my jacket pocket and removed a data chip. Around her, I walked to the arbiter's table and placed it in front of him. Around her, Earth is delivering terms. Around her, the distinction matters. Around her, I would ask this chamber to keep it in mind throughout the rest of this conversation. Around her, I stepped back to the speaker's floor. Around her, for 40 years. Around her, Earth operated within the community's framework. Around her, we filed petitions. Around her, we attended reviews. Around her, We modified our research disclosure practices on 3 separate occasions, around each time based on assurances that modifications would advance our membership application. They hinted at her spine. Around her, they did not advance it. Around her, we submitted to 2 independent security assessments conducted by community-appointed teams. Around her, both of which cleared dearth of the specific concerns cited in this morning's vote. Around her, those assessments were classified. Around her, they were never entered into the formal record. Around her, I looked across the full chamber. Around her, at no point in 40 years did this body treat Earth as a civilization with legitimate standing. Around her, we were processed. Around her, we were told our concerns had been noted and that the process would continue. Around her, that arrangement ends. Around her, I nodded toward the data chip. Around her, the file contains Earth's terms. Around her, they are complete and they are not modular. Around her, Earth's relay nodes remain under Earth's operation. Around her, with licensing agreements for continued access available at rates defined in Appendix 2. Around her, Earth's permanent arbiter's seat on this council with full voting rights is effective immediately upon agreement. Around her, the incident at Meridian Station is to be officially reclassified in the community record to reflect what actually occurred. Around her, Earth's biotech research program continues under Earth's own oversight framework. Around her, with voluntary disclosure provisions outlined in Appendix 5. Around her, Section 3 addresses the suppressed security assessment report. Around her, I would strongly suggest reading Section 3 before formulating a response. Around her, the chamber was silent for 4 seconds. Around her, that it was not silent at all. Around her, they tried. Around her, I will give them that fully. Around her, 600 civilizations do not persist long enough to build an institution this old and this complex by being unintelligent. Around her, they know how to negotiate. Around her, they know how to apply pressure. Around her, find angles. Around her, redirect conversations without the other party fully understanding what has been moved. Around her, they are very skilled at all of those things. Around her, what they did not know was how to do any of them to someone who had spent 12 years learning how they work. Around her, Soer Van Val called a 30-minute recess. Around her, 7 additional Veller legal scholars were seated at the arbiter's table. Around her, plus 2 representatives from the Community Standards Authority, a body that existed. Around her, as far as I had ever been able to determine. Around her, primarily to generate documentation confirming that existing standards applied to whatever situation was currently in dispute. Around her, the senior legal scholar opened with the full framework argument. Around her, systematic. Around her, structured. Around her, well prepared. Around her, he used 14 minutes uncovered precedent. Around her, historical context. Around her, and the position that Earth's node construction. Around her, while not explicitly prohibited under current interstellar property statutes. Around her, potentially violated the spirit of the community's infrastructure cooperation framework. Around her, the spirit of the framework. Around her, I waited until he finished completely. Around her, the spirit of the framework was written to centuries ago by species who had not yet made first contact with Earth. Around her, I said, around her, Earth was not consulted on the spirit of the framework. Around her, Earth was not consulted on any of the foundational documents your team is currently citing. Around her, we were presented with those documents as conditions of a membership application that as of this morning has produced no membership after 40 years of active processing. Around her, I looked at Owen. Around her, he stepped forward. Around her, he placed a physical document in front of the senior scholar. Around her, then another. Around her, then 6 more. Around her, precisely stacked. Around her, legal analysis of every precedent cited. Around her, Owen said, around her, with specific annotation to the sections that do not apply to Earth's construction activities because Earth was not a signatory to the originating agreements. Around her, all verified in time-stamped. Around her, the third document in that stack references Section 19 of the community's own Infrastructure Development Charter. Around her, which provides direct positive legal support for independent node construction in open interstellar space not subject to any existing territorial claim. Around her, the senior scholar looked at the stack of documents. Around her, he looked at Owen. Around her, He looked at the documents again. Around her, Owen returned to his position near the wall. Around her, picked up his coffee. Around her, and stared at the middle distance with the expression of a man running on very little sleep and the very specific energy that comes from doing work you have been building toward for 3 years and have finally been given permission to do in front of the people it was designed for. Around her, the legal argument ended. Around her, the AIC delegation produced their threat 17 minutes later. Around her, their senior delegate stood. Around her, his statement. A petard through her spine. Around her, rendered through the chamber's translation relay. Around her, described Earth's node activation as a destabilizing action that posed a direct threat to the security of established interstellar infrastructure. Around her, he noted that the AIC maintained enforcement capability sufficient to address infrastructure threats of this nature under current community emergency security protocols. Around her, he framed it carefully as a statement of capability and legal authority. Around her, not as a declaration. Around her, he sat down. Around her, the chamber waited. Around her, I reached into my jacket pocket. Around her, I opened a specific file on my personal comm unit. Around her, I pressed play. Around her, the audio lasted 12 seconds. Around her, 2 voices. Around her, clear recording. Around her, speaking in AIC standard. Around her, translated in real time by the chamber's universal relay system for every delegation present. Around her, a conversation between the senior military officers discussing the approach vector of an Earth survey vessel near the Meridian Station sector. Around her, the decision to initiate a boarding action on an unarmed civilian research craft. Around her, and the escalation that followed, which the officers described as having proceeded according to plan. Around her, 12 seconds. Around her, I stopped the playback. Around her, the full recording is 47 minutes. Around her, Earth has held it for 6 years. Around her, it currently exists on 7 separate servers across 3 solar systems. Around her, Section 4 of Earth's terms addresses the official record correction for the Meridian Station incident. Around her, I would recommend reviewing Section 4 carefully before this delegation makes any additional statements. Around her, the AIC senior delegate was completely still. Around her, the specific deliberate stillness of a large. Around her, physically expressive species choosing with considerable effort not to express anything at all. Around her, he made no further statement. Around her, the Velari commercial representatives had received communications from their home offices during the recess. Around her, the responses had reorganized their body language in a way that was not difficult to read. Around her, the message that had come back was some form of "do not disconnect the nodes." Around her, their own supply chain mathematics had spoken more directly than any position paper could. Around her, I turned back to Sorventhal. Around her, the terms are complete. Around her, I said. Around her, I am willing to clarify any section whose language requires it. Around her, that is different from modification. Around her, and I want to be precise about that difference. Around her, Fall looked at me with the particular expression of a person who runs an institution that is currently being required to adapt faster than its design permits. Around her, from the back of the chamber. Around her, a voice asked for the floor. Around her, a young Velari delegate. Around her, outer system delegation. Around her, not the core authority. Around her, young for a Velari. Around her, wide-eyed in the way that species only is when something has genuinely caught them without preparation. Around her, Thal granted the floor. Around her, the delegate looked at me directly. Around her, why did you not simply ask for this? Around her, all of it. Around her, before all of this became necessary. Around her, the chamber was quiet. Around her, I looked at him for a long moment. Around her, I thought about 219 correspondence chains that went into drawers. Around her, I thought about the security assessment reports cleared for return of membership application and then classified from the formal record. Aktif Sulat together is the intact job to prescribe. Around her, I thought about a 47-minute audio recording held for 6 years because the official documentation of what happened at Meridian Station described it as a navigational misunderstanding. Around her, I thought about a woman filling in boxes on a form at a kitchen table. Around her, believing in the right process with the specific faith of someone who cannot afford to believe that the process was never designed to let them through. Around her, we did ask. Around her, I said. Around we asked for 30 years. Around I held his gaze. They wowed her. Then we stopped asking. Around the young delegate looked at me. They looked down. Around he did not speak again. Around Sir Van Thal called for the vote 43 minutes later. Around no further legal challenges were raised. No additional statements from the AIC delegation. Around the Valari commercial representatives had already signaled their approval through the informal channels that run faster than any formal vote. Around the HFY Tran delegation was visibly recalculating something on their tablets. Around the Breathe Collective senior delegate had moved closer to the center of their observation platform, a small shift. Around but the Breathe did nothing by accident. Around the vote moved through the chamber species by species as it had that morning. Around but the indicator lights above the delegation seats shifted to blue this time. Around not amber. Around the Valari Pharmaceutical Consortium went first. Around then the outer system delegations who had been watching the course into the recess. Around then the AN Raid Federation delegates. Then who had been on their comms for the entire 30-minute break. Around them the MURs ran faster than anyone expected. Around which meant their trade calculus had already resolved before the vote started. Around 601 civilizations in favor of Earth's terms. Around one modification to appendix to that 01 had agreed to during the recession that I had reviewed and approved while the legal scholars were still arranging their documents. Around 11 abstentions. Around Saturo opposing votes. Around I stood on the speaker's floor and watched the blue spread across the chamber. Around I felt something pass through me that I had no intention of naming in a room with 900 observers. Around I noted it. Around I filed it. Around I would carry it the way I carried everything else below the operational layer where it would not interfere with the work. Around I said to the chamber. Around the words were accurate. Around that was all they needed to be. Around I stepped down. Around Owen was near the exit. Around he handed me a coffee without speaking. Around cold. Around I drank it without comment. Around we walked into the corridor. Around I held up one hand. Around Owen stopped beside me. Around I stayed still for 11 seconds. Around the corridor had the same compressed ceiling. Around the same polished dome. Around the same air scrubbers that were not broken here. Around humming at a frequency the human ear barely registers. Around I had walked this corridor hundreds of times. Around it had never felt like this. Around then I straightened. Around I opened comms. Around Hank answered on the second pulse. Around I said. Around a pause. Around how does it feel? Around I thought about it. Around like winning an argument with someone who ran over your dog 6 years ago and wrote the incident report themselves. A pause on his end. Around that sounds about right. Around I ended the call. They was purring. Around there was work to do. Around the seat was won. Around but winning a seat and knowing what to do with it, those are two different conversations. Around and the second one had already started. Around 90 days later. Around I was in the middle of a trade mediation between the AN Federation and a Valari commercial consortium when I noticed the AIC delegate had been watching me for 23 minutes. Around not the way anyone had watched me in the chamber those first 2 days. Around when every delegation in the building was actively trying to determine whether Earth was a threat. Around or something that did not fit cleanly into either category. Around this was different. Quieter. Around he watched with the focused attention of someone working out a calculation they had not expected to need. Around I noted it. Around I continued the mediation. Around the AN representative was making a reasonable argument about corridor access fees. Around the Valari consortium would accept it if someone with formal arbitration standing would create an independent framework both parties could reference. Around that was part of my new function. Around not solely Earth's voice in the chamber. Around a standing arbitration presence with authority that operated independently of the community's standard resolution process. Around The Valori Consortium had requested me specifically. Allowed her. 6 weeks earlier. Allowed her. They would not have accepted a human arbitrator in any capacity. Allowed her. I closed the mediation after 40 minutes. They allowed her. Both parties left with what they had come for. Around her. I did not frame that internally as a victory. Around her. It was a function. Around her. Functions you perform correctly until they become the expected condition of things. Around her. Until the expected condition of things is different from what it used to be, and then you have changed something that does not announce itself. Around her. After the chamber cleared. Around her. The AIC delegate crossed the floor toward me. Around her. He stopped at 2 meters outside the standard AIC interaction distance. Around her. A deliberate choice on his part. Allowed her. Your people argue like you expect to lose. Allowed her. Allowed her. I considered that it was not an insult. Around her. The AC communicate through direct observation. Around her. They name what they see. Allowed her. And the naming is the communication itself. Around her. Habit. Allowed her. Around her. He looked at me for another moment. Around her. Then he left. I carried that observation longer than the corridor required. Around her. We argue like people who have been losing and learn it to be precise about it anyway. Allowed her. We argue like lawyers who built every case from secondary sources because the primary sources were never made available. Allowed her. We argue the way you argue when you know you are right. They allowed her, but the available channels were not designed to confirm you. Allowed her. All of those things were true. Around her. And they were the same observation arriving from different angles. Around her. Petra Wells came to the station on day 64. Around her. She did not travel often. Around her. She had a lab. Around her. A team. Around her. And the kind of focus that experiences transit time as hours removed from productive work. Around her. When she appeared at the station's receiving hub with a bag over one shoulder and the specific compressed look of someone who had been in a transport pod for 30 hours straight. Around her. I understood the visit was not casual. Around her. We ate in the station cafeteria. Allowed her. The food had improved since I had taken the arbitration post because the supply chain now had better corridor access, a small irony I acknowledged without making anything of it. Around her. Petra ate efficiently. Around her. As she always does. Around her. Then set her fork down and looked at me with the direct. Around her. And decorated attention she uses when something matters enough to warrant the trip. Around her. Node 7 is degrading faster than projected. Around her. She said. Around her. Traffic volume through the pharmaceutical corridor is running 40% above our usage models. Allowed her. We need either an upgrade to the existing node or a second unit in that sector. Allowed her. Add the second unit. Allowed her. That is what I expected you to say. Allowed her. I need authorization and a budget allocation from your office. Allowed her. Send the specs to Owen. Allowed her. He will process the authorization this week. Allowed her. Around her. She looked at me a moment longer than the logistics required. Around her. Are you doing all right? Around her. She said. Around her. The question had weight behind it that the words themselves did not carry. They round her. Petra had known me for 9 years. Around her. She was the one who sent the message that read it's ready. Around her. She had been awake for 31 consecutive hours on the day of the first vote. Around her. Monitoring 47 nodes from a station for light minutes from the chamber. Allowed her. Waiting to receive a single word back from me. Allowed her. She understood precisely what we had built and what it had taken and what the second vote had not resolved. Allowed her. I am working. Allowed her. Around her. She accepted that answer without adjusting it. Around her. Petra has always understood the difference between an answer and an action around one. Around her. And she has always recognized when the navigation is itself the more honest thing. Around her. The team would like to know if you are coming to the lab when you are next back on Earth. Around her. She said. Around her. When I am next back. Around her. I will tell them to assume yes. Around her. Tell them I said hello. Around her. She left the next morning. Around her. I watched her pod disconnect from the station bay and move into the departure corridor. Around her. I stood at the bay window for another few seconds after it was gone. Around her. Then I went back to work. Around her. Director Neil Sutton arrived on day 78 with a delegation of 4 and a prepared agenda running to 6 pages. Around her. Sutton. Around her. Comfortable with hierarchy. Around her. skilled at the diplomatic art of making constraints look like choices. Around her, genuinely well-meaning in the way that people are when institution has become the primary medium through which they perceive what is possible. Around her, he arrived with the careful, around her, slightly reorganized energy of a person who has updated a significant understanding and is still integrating the update. Around her, we met in the station's formal conference room. Around her, it had a Valerai aesthetic. The clean lines around her, mineral surfaces designed to communicate permanence and authority. Around her, I had not changed any of it since taking the post. Around her, the room communicated what it communicated. Around her, I did not need to redecorate to change the conversation that happened inside it. Around her, Sutton moved through the agenda methodically. Around her, relay node policy, formalization. Around her, bilateral agreement governance framework. Around her, Meridian Station reclassification communications. Around her, the suppressed security assessment reports. Around her, I stopped in mid-sentence. Around her, those go public. Around her, all of them. Around her, unredacted. Around her, he checked his notes. Around her, the legal committee's recommendation was phased disclosure with a community impact assessment preceding each release. Around her, the legal committee's recommendation was designed to man Earth's relationships within the community framework. Around her, those relationships have changed structurally. Around her, the reports go public unredacted on the timeline Earth Communications Office determines is logistically sound. Around her, the people who were aboard the survey vessel at Meridian Station and the families of everyone involved in that incident deserve an accurate public record. Around her, that is not a policy position I am willing to negotiate. Around her, it is the minimum the situation requires. Around her, Sutton wrote something on his notepad. Around her, the room was quiet enough that the pen made a small sound. Around her, we finished the full agenda in just under 2 hours. Around her, his delegation gathered their materials with the coordinated efficiency of people accustomed to formal settings. Around her, Sutton himself moved toward the door and then stopped. Around her, he had the posture of a person carrying one more thing and deciding carefully how to set it down. Around her, he said, around her, for people back on Earth. Around her, for the institutions. Around her, the way people understand what has changed. Around her, it will need time to become something they can actually live inside of. Around her, something they can build from. Around her, I understood exactly what he meant. Around Earth had spent 40 years inside a particular understanding of what was achievable. Around her, of what you could reasonably expect from the universe if you did everything correctly and waited long enough and demonstrated clearly that you had earned inclusion. Around her, that understanding does not reorganize overnight because a chamber full of amber lights voted blue. Around her, it reorganizes slowly. Around her, one revised expectation at a time. Around her, he left. Around her, I sat alone in the conference room. Around her, I did not review the agenda or the session calendar or the relay node upgrade request. Around her, I thought about something specific and small and very clear. Around her, a woman at a kitchen table with a form in front of her. Around her, filling in every required box with careful handwriting. Around her, attaching every required document. Around her, sending it through the correct channel. Around her, and then beginning the work of waiting for a system she believed in to respond to her in kind. Around her, I thought about what that costs over 14 years. Around her, what it costs a person to keep going back to that table. Around her, filling in boxes that ask the same questions. Around her, attaching documents that have already been reviewed and cleared and set aside. Around her, believing each time that this version of the effort might be the one the process recognizes. Around her, I sat with that for as long as it needed. Around her, then I stood up. Around her, I straightened my jacket. Around her, I went back to work. Around her, the morning session on day 91 was a territorial boundary dispute between two mid-tier species I had been mediating for 3 weeks. Around her, it was intricate. Around her, careful work. Around her, both parties had legitimate historical claims to overlapping resource zones. Around her, both communicated in styles that made each side feel precise and left the other feeling unheard. Around her, threading that kind of dispute requires patience of a very specific quality. Around her, not the patience of endurance. Around her, the patience of listening past what people are saying toward what they are actually trying to protect. Around her, those are not always the same thing. Around her, the AIC delegate was in the chamber again. Around her, his delegation had no stake in this particular session. Around her, he sat in his delegation section with the particular stillness of a large species choosing to occupy less space than it could. Around her, watching. Around her, I mediated for 2 hours and 14 minutes. Around her, the dispute had a shape that was close to resolvable. Around her, both parties were nearer to an agreement than either of them recognized, because they were measuring distance from their stated positions rather than from their actual interests. Around her, I stepped outside the community's standard resolution framework and reframed both sets of claims through a shared resource stewardship model drawn from an Earth organizational approach developed for multi-party industrial zones. Around her, neither party had proposed it. Around her, both could recognize it as more favorable than the current state of permanent dispute. Around her, by the end of the session, around her, they had agreed to a provisional framework. Around her, both delegations left with the particular energy of people who arrived expecting a longer fight and discovered there was a different door they had not seen before. Around her, after the chamber cleared, inclined toward around her, the AIC delegate crossed the floor. Around her, he stopped at 2 meters again. Around her, the same measured distance as the conversation 3 weeks ago. Around her, the framework you used in that mediation. Around her, the shared stewardship model. Around her, that is not a community standard approach. Around her, it comes from an Earth organizational system developed for multi-party resource disputes. Around her, we have used it domestically for about 60 years. Around her, it does not always work. Around her, but when the underlying interests are actually compatible and the obstacle is framing it tends to. Around her, he processed that for a moment. Around her, you have other frameworks like it. Around her, not phrasing it as a question. Around her, several. Around her, he was quiet. Around her, then the AIC has an internal dispute. Around her, 2 member systems. Around her, it has been unresolved for 11 years. Around her, the community's standard arbitration process has not produced an outcome both systems are willing to accept. Around her, the dispute has begun affecting trade and communication infrastructure in that region. I looked at him. Around her, send the file to Owen Hart. Around her, he will assess whether Earth's bilateral arbitration framework is applicable. Around her, he will send you our terms and a proposed process timeline. The AIC delegate looked at me for a long moment. Something moved in his expression that I did not have a clean word for in any language I knew. Around her, not gratitude. Around her, not quite respect. How to see glad together as the impact jarred through his parin. Around her, the specific acknowledgement of a person who has just been required to update a significant assumption and has chosen rather than resist it to simply update it. Around her, you are a strange species. Around her, he said. Around her. I stood in the chamber for a moment longer. Around her, the afternoon session delegates were beginning to arrive. Around her, the room was filling again with the ordinary sound of business resuming. Around her, movement. Around her, low conversation. Around her, the mechanical sounds of a large building in use. Around her, in the 3 months since the second vote. Around her, 14 species had sent formal bilateral inquiry packets to Earth Station. Around her, not community-mediated arrangements. Around her, not requests filtered through the standard framework and review process. Around her, direct contacts. Around her, species to species. Around her, asking to arrange terms directly. Around her, smaller delegations. Around her, mostly. How chief silat together as they didn't that John spawn. Around her, outer system species who had watched what happened in the chamber and drawn their own conclusions about what it meant to build a relationship directly with a civilization that had just demonstrated it could construct infrastructure while no one was paying attention. Around her, I read every request personally. Around her, I flagged 3 as genuinely promising. Around her, too. Around her, I identified as situations where a bilateral arrangement would serve the requesting species' interests clearly and where Earth's framework was a good fit. Around her, One I recognized as a Velari commercial interest operating through a different entity name, Olandra. The contract structure was identical to two frameworks I had seen used before certain clauses modified. Olandra, but the underlying architecture changed. Olandra, I sent it back and signed with one annotation. Olandra, we have seen this structure before. Olandra, please contact Toan Hart's office for information on what Earth's bilateral agreements actually contain. The response came from the actual requesting party. Olandra, a legitimate independent Velar, a shipping operation that apparently had not known exactly what they were signing. Olandra, within 6 hours. Olandra, unprocessed their real request. Olandra, inside 2 weeks. Olandra, he sent me a brief note that said it was one of the more straightforward agreements he had processed so far. Olandra, Owen had hired 2 additional staff for his office without asking me first. Olandra, having calculated that I would approve the decision and that asking first would cost time neither of us had. Olandra, both calculations were correct. Olandra, I approved the hires after the fact with a message that said good call. Olandra, I gathered my materials from the mediator's table and moved to the arbiter's position for the afternoon session. Olandra, the chair was better than the ambassador's bench I had occupied for 3 years. Owen had raised the issue during the transition. Olandra and Sir Van Thal had accommodated it with the efficiency of an administrator who had calculated that the cost of the accommodation was lower than the cost of the alternative. Olandra, I opened my tablet. Olandra, for files to review before the afternoon session opened. Olandra, Petra's node upgrade authorization waiting for my signature. Olandra, a second bilateral inquiry from the MUR. It's far clearer than their first approach. Olandra, which suggested someone on their team had studied how Earth's intake process actually worked and adjusted accordingly. Olandra, a memo from Owen about the AN Federation's interest in Earth's participation in a joint research disclosure partnership worth reading carefully before responding. Olandra, a subcommunication from Chief Arbiter Sir Van Thal regarding the upcoming anniversary review of Earth's arbitration seat. Olandra, standard procedure. Olandra, routine institutional record typing. Olandra, the machinery of a very old organization running as it always runs. Olandra, I filed Thal's message. Olandra, I would respond tomorrow. Olandra, the crack in the tablet screen caught the chamber light the same way it always had. Olandra, hairline fracture from the top right corner. Olandra, spreading toward the center but not yet crossing into the display area. Olandra, the case was softened by grip. Olandra, worn smooth in the places where my left hand held it during long sessions. Olandra, I had carried this tablet through 3 years of ambassadorial work. Olandra, through 8 months of planning in a hotel room on Velar Prime. Olandra, through the morning of the Exile vote and the afternoon of the return. Olandra, the light came through the crack at a different angle now. Olandra, not brighter. Olandra, not dimmer. Olandra, just different. Olandra, the way light changes when you are standing in the same room, but the room is not the same room anymore. Olandra, I looked across the chamber. Olandra, 900 versions of intelligence settling into position for the afternoon's work. Olandra, arguments to be made. Olandra, disputes to be navigated. Olandra, imperfect. Olandra, necessary work of civilizations with different histories and different needs and different ideas about what fairness looks like. Olandra, all sharing a galaxy and trying more often than not to run each other over. Olandra, it was not a fixed thing. Olandra, it was not a finished thing. Olandra, it was the same room it had been the morning of the first vote. Olandra, same stone. Olandra, same ceiling. Olandra, same scrubbers on the east wall that needed repair. Olandra, and something inside it had changed that the room itself would take years to fully understand. Olandra, that was all right. Olandra, I had time. Olandra, Chief Arbiter Sir Van Thal, called the afternoon session to order. Olandra, I picked up my stylus. Olandra, here's the thing nobody tells you about getting a seat at the table. Olandra, the table does not change. Olandra, you just stop being the thing people wipe their boots on before they sit down. Olandra, I opened the first file. Olandra, I started the work.